Well, after watching the film on Purdue, I didn't change much what I felt right after the game. That now it comes down to finding a way to win and not finding a way to give it away at the end. And I don't mean those 3 turnovers at the very end. It was kind of the plays in the middle. Another couple of missed free throw cutouts, which I think you have control of. Another couple of missed free throws, which you semi have control of. But the effort was there for the most part. We put ourselves in a position to win a game. And now we got to find a way to do it. Saturday's game is the first of 4 games next week, so the road doesn't get any easier, especially in this conference where there's nobody and no way to get what I would call an easy game. But we also have great opportunities. As far as Indiana goes, they've won 3 of their last 4 games. They've beaten a team like Iowa twice. They've had a few ups and downs themselves. They have 3 players scoring in double figures and then 5 that are very close in the league in double figures, led by Trace Jackson, who has turned himself into a very, very, very good player as time has gone on here. He's very good in the low post. He's become a pretty good passer. He has a great spin move. They have a pair of experienced guards in Durham and Finney, and Durham is probably playing his best basketball now as a senior. Is doing some really good things. They're scoring. He's shooting the ball very well. It is a pretty good free throw shooting team, and they get to the free throw line. It's a decent free throw shooting team. The problem is they get to the free throw line, I think it's 28 times a game. So they're getting there a lot, and we're going to have to defend without fouling and stop that dribble penetration. So I'll just open up some questions that you can ask.
We'll go first to Matt Sharp.
Tom, real quick, I don't know if a couple days have helped Rocket feeling a little bit better, and then the other thing is with Foster, with that shoulder, you mentioned he might have surgery at the end of the year. Is this something where he's going to kind of suck it up through the season, and you're not really sure each night how much he can give you, and that might change from game to game?
Yeah, unfortunately, because we were starting to play him more, and unfortunately, he came in yesterday and we talked and, kind of went through it with Gary Harris way back in the day, Andre Hudson. But Gary Harris did it and he took a week off. What I didn't know in that game is the first second he was in there, he shot a cross screen and he just knew then that he couldn't do anything with his left arm. So we're going to give him a week anyway. And kind of what he decided, the trainer and ourselves, he does not want to have surgery during the week or during the year. He wants to finish it off. And you never know, like Gary went through that and it came back around after a week or 8 days. And then it happened once his second year, but he really never had surgery on it. I think this one's a little worse from what I'm hearing, but that'll be the case. In Rocket's case, I think he's finally over it. Yesterday he was feeling the best he's felt in 5 days. I think it was just a flu bug. It wasn't anything with COVID. But it was, when you're throwing up, it dehydrates you, and he went through that for a few days. And so I think he's back on track. So that's the only medical update I can give you on Foster. And it's too bad because that kid was so good on the bench the other day. He knew every call, every play. As I said, he's the best guard I got of running the team. He knows everybody's position in that, but it is what it is. He was great yesterday. We talked for an hour, and I don't know if he got a lot out of it. I got a lot out of it. So, unfortunately, at the end, what I got out of it is everybody decided it probably should be at least a week, see if we can settle that thing down and go from there.
The other thing I wanted to ask real quick, too, is notice late in that game with some of the mistakes. I know Joey was, hands on his head. You could see the frustration with guys and understanding, what's happening late in the game. Do you worry that sometimes that they're getting so frustrated that you get in this rut and it's hard to kind of pull yourself out of it at times when you're not trying to make mistakes, obviously, but when it happens,
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, that's me. I mean, Are they frustrated? Of course they're frustrated. They have so many things they're trying to deal with, and this is new. When you say, it seems like guys are frustrated when you're watching facial responses. I say it's the opposite with me. People are calling me and saying, why aren't you more angry? Why aren't you more frustrated? Everybody's trying to deal with this. And I don't mean just losing some games. I'm talking about everything else they're dealing with. And it gets magnified, the other things they're dealing with outside when you're struggling inside. And, Joey went through that, but I actually thought in watching the film, he played very good until those 3 turnovers at the end. And the game was kind of a 5-6 point game with a minute something left, winnable, but it didn't cause us to lose. I'm more upset about the missed free throw cutouts or things that have to be, that we work on all the time. And then, it's hard to play certain people if you're shooting, you're gonna have your hands on the ball and you're missing free throws. And, we were at one time a 77-78% free throw shooting team. So it's there. It's just, hey, that's what losing does to you. It brings you down a little bit. Do I worry I'm losing it or losing them? I'm really not worried about that. I'm worried that there's frustration. There's frustration by everybody. Hell, you guys are frustrated. Every fan's frustrated. Not just the way it works. And then everybody's trying to pick apart what you could do better. And that's understandable.
We'll go next to Lindsey Huddleston.
Hey, Tom, when you last talked to us the other day, you kind of alluded to that underbelly of college basketball, developing kids. High school basketball is in full swing right now. Can you talk about the disconnect that happens between a great high school player and the potential difficulty of that development part for them on a collegiate level?
Well, I think, Lindsay, that every coach I talk to is concerned about that because, it's almost like workout guys are more important than anybody now. Can I do and one stuff? Can I dribble it every which way and do this and do that? Can I make a Euro step? Can I, how about just being able to make a free throw, or a good 2-hand chest pass? There is a disconnect, and there's no question about it. And I think coaches all over the country are worried about it. When I hear LeBron and them talk about some of those things, those guys came up through the AU basketball and all that stuff, and yet they're even talking about it. So I think it's an issue that got compounded, as I've been saying all year, with the lack of May, June, July, August, September. That's when you kind of make that transition and help things. That's where you take a guy who's maybe a 2 guard and you make him into a point guard, or you take a guy who's got to gain 20 pounds and you're with him every day. Every time I talk to you guys, I feel like I'm trying to find answers. It seems like I'm trying to find excuses. But as I said to each and every one of you, you'll have no idea how difficult this has been on those players. And if you don't have the good base, which most of them don't, that's pretty normal. That off season is the time when you really develop some things. Maybe you're in the gym working out, and Denzel and Gary Harris are in there working out or something. And there's nothing like peers telling them, Xavier's maybe working out, or Cassius, and now all of a sudden this summer nobody's working out. Those things are sorely missed, and I'm watching a couple games. Watch that Purdue game. Guys, it wouldn't have taken that much, and things could have swung one way or the other. Maybe a call, maybe a cutout, maybe a made free throw. And then all of a sudden, you add all the other things up. And that's why I don't look at this the same way people do. I kind of have a great understanding of what's going on. I can't say that I've been able to just stop it. And that includes me. I've been through a lot too with COVID myself, and dealing with all the different personalities in kids and how they handle it, how their parents. I heard Julius was in here. I had a long talk with him last night, just about his father. I mean, some guys don't open up, and those things can be wearing on you. I think what that kid's gone through between COVID, being away from home, losing his father, all good excuses, guys. Shouldn't mean you should be able to still cut out at the free throw line or make a free throw. But I think back to your original question, yeah, those off-season things really hurt because there is a disconnect of what reality is, and as far as being a good college player. I mean, listen, I've talked to Calipari and Wright and Krzyzewski and Self and Roy and I mean all the guys at that level on the committee I'm on. And I mean, a lot of people are talking about the exact same things, and I don't think you could appreciate it unless you have kids that have gone through a tough time with the COVID. It's if they always say mental health's important, well, it's pretty hard to handle yourself mentally with all the things these kids have had thrown at them this year. And so then you lose a little bit, and it gets exasperated. There's no question about it.
Great, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Next to Chris Savary.
Hey, Tom, I wondered, from the coaching standpoint, you mentioned about a lot of the issues with the COVID and maybe where you're at in this point in the season with the truncated preseason and the month off. How do you juggle maybe seeing some of these repetitive mistakes as a coach and maybe balancing it with knowing those things? I mean, I would imagine there's points where you want to be a lot more demanding, but maybe can't. Or maybe, is that a fair assessment?
That's a real fair assessment. I mean, I talked to a coach today that is going through a tough time a little bit, and his fans and media are on him because he's too crazy. I watched Calipari last night. I mean, that's one thing you can't say about me this year. I can't take that criticism because if you ask me personally, I've been too mellow, and I have been trying to find a balance. And the balance is different with every kid. And, and I think one other thing that everybody should realize is usually in the 30-some years I've been in this conference, there's not one or two teams. There's usually 3 or 4 teams that you look at and say, each year I'm going to get 6 wins, I'm going to get 7 wins. If you play them twice. If you don't play them twice, I'm going to get 5 that are definites. And the conference is so good this year that you just look ahead and you say, wow, we're going to play 4 games Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday, whatever it is. And I think 2 of them for sure are against top 6 teams. And, we've gone Big Ten seasons where I played 2 top 10 teams, top 20 teams, twice in the whole season as I looked it up. So, different year in so many different ways, and probably a bad year to be an average team that needed to get better in the offseason as far as the competition. But, yeah, it's been a balancing act, a juggling act, and probably spent more time with the guys. And that's why I can appreciate some of what they're going through, but some of those same mistakes are frustrating, and the questions you guys ask are frustrating, but to the point. Like, when you're going to get your lineup straightened out? Well, sometimes players choose that too, and sometimes injuries, and sometimes illness. When those guys were out during that period in the middle of the season, now you're adjusting with different people, and that's not good. At center, we've had a revolving door because you get hints of people doing well, and you kind of hope that takes off. And then some of it is who you're playing. And I'm not sure there's ever been a year, too, where we played as many big men. We could go through a lot of years and played against 2. Now you're playing against 7. If you look at Rutgers, that guy's developed into a pretty good. In fact, ironically, Ohio State is one of the teams that doesn't have anybody, and give them credit for how they've played, and yet they've had some guys now that have really stepped up and they're doing a good job. So yeah, it's been frustrating, but it hasn't been demoralizing because as bothersome as it is, I feel like I have some reasoning ability to what's gone on, if that makes any sense.
Just as a follow with Foster, with those 4 games coming up, is he going to be kind of where he was at Purdue in testing it, or maybe game time, or is it
No, I mean, right now I think we've made the decision, and I shouldn't even tell you this, but I'm going to tell you it because I feel for him. He just needs a week to see if he can get that thing settled down. I mean, he said the first screen he sat the other day, and like I said, the earliest or the more recent guy I've dealt with was Gary, and I know what that was like, and we did rest him, I think, 3 games, maybe both years, for sure 1 year, and it helped him a lot. So you don't know where that's going to go, but I even talked about, well, should we suit you up just in case this or this or this? But for a kid who wants to play every minute of every game, for a kid who is tough enough to play through injuries, for him to come up to me during the game and say that, I knew his arm was not good because I have great respect for his toughness and his wanting to play. Even now, there's some guys that just get surgery and he doesn't want to leave his teammates. He doesn't want to, feel like he's bailing out on a season. So he's not going to do that. We're just going to give it a week. What does a week mean? Does it mean next Thursday he could possibly play? Does it mean it won't be till the weekend, or would it be after the 4 games? That I don't know yet, but I know it won't be this weekend or Tuesday for sure.
Go next to Kyle Austin.
You guys certainly aren't alone in being kind of a name brand, traditionally strong college basketball program that's kind of having an off year here. Wonder, do you see that as coincidental when you see, Duke struggling, Kentucky struggling, or is there something to this year that's maybe making it a little bit more difficult for some of the programs of that caliber?
I did laugh because I've talked to both coaches more than a few times, and similar combinations of things. The one thing that I think we've had worse is I think our conference is a lot stronger than those two. But I also think, we've had the COVID in the middle of the season that really set us back a little bit, and neither one of those have had to deal with that so far. So there's similarities and differences, but Carolina's not feeling great about themselves either, and they're a little bit ahead of the rest of us. But yeah, everybody's kind of going through the same questions. You look at what happened at Duke now. Their star player, leaves early, and that never happens at Duke in that situation. And hey, it's a new day. We're all going through some new things, and I ran into one team that called us about a player that left them, and I said, why did he leave? He said he just couldn't handle being away from home, dealing with this COVID thing, and that was the only reason. Nothing bad to say, nothing this or that, and that's what I was trying to tell Lindsay, that I think you can't appreciate that every kid's going through something different. Like, we worry about Julius because he's got double damage, loses his father in the middle of the summer. And again, all this stuff sounds like a bunch of excuses. If we won 1 or 2 more games in certain spots, like we were talking about the Purdue game at home, you have the game won. If you win the game, you got COVID the next day is when it hit us. 2 days, I think it was the 10th of January, 12th of January. Well, hell, we were ranked 23rd. If we would have beat Purdue, we'd have probably been ranked 19th. We had just beaten the 15th ranked team in Rutgers by 25 points or whatever it was a couple days earlier. Then you would have been off those 17 days, probably still ranked in the top 20. And, life's a little different. And that's how fragile it is. And it's a strange year. But don't underestimate how good our league is, too. I mean, we could add great teams and struggled in our league. I mean, the league has been unbelievable, if you ask me.
Go next to Brendan quick. Hey, Tom. Look, I don't want to like discount what you're still playing for the next few weeks and trying to get ready for Indy and whatnot. But yeah, I do wonder if there are things that you're looking at trying to get a grasp of, or think, all right, what are conversations that need to be happening for next year, and talking to guys about, especially the young guys. So look, you got a couple weeks left here to show me something for next season. Is there anything like that that's on the table, or is that just not even in the mind yet?
It's always on the table at this time of year, to be honest with you, winning or losing, more so when you're losing. I would agree with you 100%. The monkey wrench that's thrown in is the one I just gave an example of, I think Julius was a guy I really liked last year. I really did, because he has the toughness to play here. He's an engineering student. He's got the brains. He hasn't had the same burning desire. And trying to figure that out on a kid who's already quiet has taken me a long time. Yesterday was one of those watershed moments when at least, he'd converse about it. But you're 2,000 miles from home, and you go through that. So I've got to keep that in the back of my mind too, But I did say, hey, guys are up for an audition right now, because if you got to see some progress made, or there's got to be changes. And maybe they feel the same way. I mean, that's the way it is in the world right now. I mean, you're going to see 3,000 people change, in my humble opinion. It'll be worse than the quarterback stuff right now in the NFL as far as percentages. But, hey, that's something I got to deal with. I'm not sitting here writing off the year, because I know where I've been before. I know how fast it can change. But I do want to see, and I've had a lot of meetings about, the scholarship's a two-way street. We have an obligation to you, and you have an obligation to us. And that's always the way it is. They're trying to not make it that way, give a kid a 4-year scholarship, let him do whatever he wants. And that's kind of the problem too, that's a societal problem that I think we're in. Somewhere in the middle there's a happy medium, but I feel very comfortable about what we've talked to our players about. What I don't feel comfortable about, Brandon, is how much that all this really affects some guys. And young guys, one thing I think we haven't, we've had really strong leadership over the years, and it's not as strong this year. That's not an insult to Aaron or Josh. I mean, Josh is trying to play after not playing for 2 years. Aaron's trying to accept a new role. It doesn't always work that way, but they're not at the same place. And so, leaders lead people. And when you don't have that as maybe good as you've had it, there's going to be residual effects. And so there's so many different things. COVID in general, not having the summer, and then going through it in the middle of January, in the middle of the Big Ten season, I think semi gets underscored. And yet when I sit there and talk to the guy at Purdue after the game, as I told you, Sasha, he hasn't scored a point since he's come back. He was their second leading scorer. And, getting it is a little more difficult. Missing practice is one thing, but having that rundown feeling is another.
A staple of this program's been seniors and having guys who are in their fourth year in the program, and they typically sometimes break out the second half of this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that right now, obviously, with Josh, but he was coming back from his own circumstances. What toll do you think that took in the big picture of not having, a 3-man senior class like you do normally have?
You're trying to do, and you and I have had many talks about over the years, and you're trying to look at it like to try to make sense of this whole thing, which I'm trying to do too. But I'm just telling you, in talking to all those coaches, that that was asked about earlier at these different programs, everybody's trying to do the same thing at most places. And some people, it's going to work out for. I mean, right now, Ohio State has done a good, Michigan's done a good job. I mean, is it the makeup of their players? Is it the age of their players? Is it the schedule? Is it that they just done a better job? I mean, maybe we haven't done as good a job. And for that, we have to take, I've taken blame for that too. But it has been way different than I thought. And you said the mark of our program, we have seniors. We got one senior, and he hasn't played for 2 years. The mark of our program has been, guys get better in the summer. We didn't have a summer. The mark of our program has been, I think guys really got better at Christmas break. We didn't have one this year. We didn't have those 6, 8, 10 days to kind of adjust. They got better because you looked at your non-conference, you saw your strengths, you saw your weaknesses. You had a time over Christmas where you worked on those. We played Christmas Day. We didn't get that. We didn't get to see all our strengths and weaknesses because we only played 5 games before Christmas. So all those things are good excuses that don't matter to any fan out there or any media member and really don't matter to me. But I do have to deal with them before I start blaming the kids for this or that. I've got to look at that and say, how much of an effect did it have and does it have? And you know what? Hey, we've had a couple of embarrassing blowouts, I would say Minnesota and I would say the Iowa game at home. Other than that, and most teams have, by the way. Most teams have. I mean, Villanova is having a great year. They got beat the other night by 20. They got beat early in the season by 25. I mean, that program well. Pretty stable program with some bunch of seniors and juniors. But that's happened to everybody this year. And so I don't look at that as the biggest negative. I do look at making the same mistakes twice, but I look at some of that and say, what happened with the days we had off? What happened to the players we didn't have there? What happened to not scrimmaging for 15 days because we didn't have enough players to do that? Those are all going to be factors in this at the end that you're not going to care about, our fans aren't going to care about, and I'm not going to care about. So I'm not blaming you guys. It's the reality, though, and I got to keep that reality part. Otherwise, I'll probably fire the head coach and change everybody in the program, and that's not a good idea. Well, not to me, but to some of you it might be.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
We have time for a couple more. We'll go first to Jana Bartle, State News, and then Dr. Dover.
Hi, Tom. After Purdue, we kind of talked a lot about Julius and about Mavi as well and what they showed in that game. I know it's only been a couple days, but have you seen anything different from them? And do you expect their impacts in future games to change at all?
Good question. Number one, I haven't seen a lot because other than a little academic meeting and just trying to meet with some players, we have to give them the day off because you definitely don't want to practice. I mean, we've had what seems like hundreds of days off, but the NCAA's you got to take a day off every week. So that was our day off since we got back late in the morning. So we didn't practice, but I have seen, I have spent some time with Julius, and I've spent a lot of time with Marty. And, what you always do in a program is you give some of the upperclassmen a chance. But I think you are going to see more and more of them. I think, Marty does what I said he does. He two-hand rebounds. He's good around the basket. He spends a lot of time in here. But as I told you, he also went from 230 to 213. He's back up to 220. That might not seem like a big deal to you, but try going against Travion at 220. It's not real healthy. So he's trying to get that weight back. And in Julius, I love Julius because I think he's the one guy that's got the toughness that kind of like a Xavier Tillman. He's got that. But Julius has probably been through more than any player I have, and he's, like yesterday, I had a short meeting with him because Julius is an engineering student, and he's going to have certain grades now to get into the School of Engineering, and that is a major thing to him. So God love him for it, but he's got a lot on his plate from what he's gone through and where he is. But I think you will see maybe a lot more of those two.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
We'll go last question to Audrey Dover.
Well, Janet kind of swooped in and stole the question a bit, but just was curious more so what the end goal was for Madi for you. I know we all know that he had a little derailment because of COVID, but I mean, what do you see the end goal for him down the stretch?
Well, Amadi has had a lot of things thrown at him. When he got here, he had to be in quarantine for 30 days. So he lived in a dorm by himself for 30 days in May, and then, couldn't do some things all summer. We know he had the broken hand last year and didn't play much in high school. So that's a lot of things to make up for. Then when he's doing that, and he's getting up to 230 pounds and starting to make some progress, he gets COVID in the middle of January, and everybody's been affected differently, as I told you. But for him, he lost all that weight, and he could eat. I mean, we tried to feed him morning, noon, and night, but the virus did that to him. So when he came into the first meeting, because after, I think it was 12 days, he was allowed to rejoin us just to be there. I looked at him, and I mean, his legs looked about this big around, and I said, how much weight did he lose? And nobody else kind of recognized that. And then we weighed him in, and we said, oh my God. So what's the end goal for Madi? I think Madi's going to be a great player here in the end goal. I think the end goal for this season is we got to get him more time now, because he is healthy. It's been, I think, 2-3 weeks since he's been back able to work out. I think he missed until, what is the day, 17th? Yeah, it was around February 3rd, I think. So he's had a couple of weeks or a little longer, get his wind back and everything, and I think you'll see Madi play more in these next couple games. Not because we're weeding out anybody, I think just because he had earned that. I told you before he got it, he was starting to play 8, 10. I think he played 12 minutes in a game. And so he was coming on then, but the setback was the setback.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Coach, that's all we have for you. Thank you for taking
Well, let me say this to all of you. I know it's a frustrating time, and probably that you can't get all the answers that you want to get, and we're trying to make these press conferences as informative or more informative. But trust me when I say, I know how frustrating it is, but trust me when I say it's even more frustrating here to try to deal with it all. And nobody has to feel sorry for us or anybody else. Nobody will. As we said, we spent 20-some years being on the upper edge of it. But, the advantage I've had is some of those great programs, as you said, have struggled a little bit too, and for different reasons. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them that they had COVID, didn't have COVID. It doesn't matter to us that we've had it. It really has been the whole 11 months since last year that has been difficult. And I think whoever said it, whoever asked me the question, I think the base of our program has not only been senior leadership, but the base of it is getting better in the off season and then getting better at Christmas. And maybe that would give you a clearer idea on the things we didn't get to do. Should it still have stopped us from getting a rebound or getting a pass in or making a free throw against Purdue the first time, or some other things that have happened, and there's only been a couple of them. I think that's true. And when I look at it, I look at this schedule we've had, I look at the one coming up, and I say, wow, maybe in my 30-some years, we've never been in that. So you put all those things together, and they're good excuses, and don't write them as excuses. There's some facts, and yet, when it's all said and done, a coach should be able to get a guy to cut out a person on the free throw line. Coach should be able to get a guy to not go 0 for 4 from the free throw line. A coach has to do his job too, and there's no question that I blame myself every night for some of it, but the roof hasn't caved in. I mean, this is a unique year that is like no other, as Jim Nance would say. And we're going to try to finish it out as strong as we can and see what happens, because I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. There's a good chance some teams are still going to get it. And when that happens, that could change things for us. It could mean we don't play as many games, or it could change things for tournament time. There's so many factors, variables out there right now that it is hard and it is frustrating. And I can imagine from your side, but rest assured, we're trying to give you the best insight as we can. I think I've been pretty honest on injuries, on different things. And your questions, be very honest with you, have been good. I mean, you guys are trying to figure it out too, but some things just can't be figured out because common sense doesn't play a role in some of these things. So we'll keep working at it. I appreciate it, and keep the pressure on us. We need that pressure on us, to be very blunt and honest with you, and we're gonna have to learn how to deal with it. I told our players, you can get through this, you can get through anything, because life will get tougher than losing a game or two in college. I promise you that. And those of us that have graduated know that's a true statement. So take care, gang.